Hi, it's Kara here from Health, Home, and Happiness, and today I needed to make popsicles for my kids. We make a bunch at a time, and I posted on Instagram before, and you guys have seemed to enjoy seeing what we do. It's super easy to make popsicles, and I'll show you in a second. We have like a bazillion molds because I like to make a bunch at once. For the summer, with my 3 kids and then the neighborhood kids coming over, a lot of times we'll go through quite a few, and it's really nice to not have to buy them. Buying the ones without sugar at the store is expensive, and it's also nice to be able to put stuff in that's really helpful for the kids. Use organic fruit and stuff, so you know exactly what's in these for the kids. And while I'm making our popsicles, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about picky eating, and I've left some links for you below. That I had the picky eating solution, and I was just on the phone with a mom, couple moms this past week, and you guys are making amazing progress, but I keep getting some questions, and you guys are really interested in what I do to combat picky eating in my family, and so I wanted to share some tips with you as I make these popsicles. But we're going to go ahead and start with our Real Fruit Popsicles, and I'm going to move this. I'm doing this on the computer. I usually do this on my phone, so I'm hoping this is working well for you. But I'm going to move it down, and I am doing this when my kids are gone. You'll see I didn't get all my dishes done. So hopefully you can hear it all okay. Let's do that up a little bit. Okay. So these are my popsicle molds. And I just set them all up. You see I have like a bazillion because we do so many popsicles. So I set them all up at once. And then I'm just going to cut up fresh fruit and fill them about halfway with cut up fresh fruit. Oops. Then I make kind of a sweet liquid, and I pour that over the fruit and stick the sticks in, and then we put those in the freezer, and we have a bunch of popsicles. It's super hot for us in Montana this week. I don't know about you. My kids are kind of tired from last night. I bet yours are too. So here's one of our finished popsicles, and I'll see if I can pull it out. I got it out a few minutes ago. You just run them under cold water. Maybe. If you want to ask me questions, I can try and answer some Q&A also. Not sure how many of you are here. I'm doing this later than I had planned. But so this is a popsicle, and popsicles are so forgiving. I'm going to give you some tips on how to make them sweet enough so your kids will like them, but still include all the stuff you want. This is a smoothie, so if we have any leftover smoothies in the morning, I just pour it into a popsicle mold and stick it into the freezer. But I'll show you how easy these are to make. Just going to rinse off our fruit. Some strawberries. And popsicle molds are actually a lot smaller than you would think they are. You would think that this would probably be a lot of fruit. And I bet you I'm going to rinse more fruit than we actually need. Strawberries, blueberries, apricots. It's a great way to use that fruit that's about to go bad too. Just going to give this a rinse over here. Then for those of you who are just joining us, we just set up our popsicle molds. I have all the sticks over here that go to them. And, oh, that's bad. So we won't use that. I just fill them about halfway with fresh cut up fruit. And I like to just do it kind of by color. Of course, you eat with your eyes first. And so if we can get the colors right and pretty in here, then they're really pleasing. I'm going to show you how we make dairy kefir. I'm pretty sure is how you say it. Sometimes when I learned most of my nutrition stuff by reading books, so I don't know how to say all these words correctly. But it's a super high probiotic drink, and it's really easy to make. It's easier than yogurt. You'll see how easy it is in a second. I like to use that in popsicles because it is a little bit more strong tasting. It tastes almost yeast-like. But because popsicles are frozen, it kind of mutes the flavor a little bit. So that's a great way to get those probiotics in. Then I'll also show you how I use some fruit juice for other popsicles, and I do fruit juice ones for the neighbor kids because if I give them kefir, it's too high in probiotics and it'll trigger a die-off reaction for them. So I don't give guests high probiotic foods. It's too much, but I do like to give it to my own kids. So you want to cut them up pretty small so that we can get the liquid in around these. But these will freeze really well. And then we can add in that juice concentrate that's thinned out a little bit with water, or we can add in that dairy kefir, but we're going to add a little bit of sweetener to it. I'm using maple syrup today. I thought I had some dates to sweeten it, but I'm all out of dates right now. So popsicles are super forgiving, but you do want to remember that because it's frozen, the flavors do tone down a little bit, so you can make them a little bit stronger tasting. And if you are using a sweetener in them, like I do for my kids, I make it a little sweeter than I normally would. You can use stevia for that, or you can use honey, or even really ripe bananas, like the bananas that are all yellow. That'll make it sweet enough for most of our kids. Some kids will want a little more. And I think even if you are going to add sugar to them, if that's what you have on hand, and you want to use sugar, being able to make these mostly whole fruit and not filled with corn syrup and food dye is still a great thing to do. And they're super easy to make. This whole thing, we're making quite a few. And if we bought this many organic natural popsicles in the store, it would cost quite a bit. So I'm just layering in the fresh fruit. We're doing some with blueberries and strawberries, some with blueberries, strawberries, and apricots, some with just strawberries. Just a nice variety. Watermelon is fun to puree and then add in as well. So about picky eating, I told you guys I was going to talk about picky eating. And the first part, I have the picky eating solution, and it's a free webinar. I linked to that in the video notes. And the first part of that is to limit snacking, but you can see because we do popsicles, popsicles are my exclusion to that rule. These are actually really small. They look bigger than they are. They're probably only like 50 calories at the most, I would think. So they don't really keep my kids from enjoying their meals. And a lot of people get kind of irritated because in America we like to snack, but I limit my kids snacking quite a bit because then they are truly hungry for their meals and they're not holding out and avoiding their meat and vegetables because they know that they're going to be able to get a snack that they would prefer, which my kids they think they could live on fruit. They wouldn't feel very good, but they absolutely love fruit. And so if my kids think there's a chance that they can hold out and not eat their meal that will fill them up and keep them full for a little while, and then later eat fruit instead, they will try to do that. So we have a no snacking rule, which our exception is they can have one popsicle in the afternoon, especially since it's so hot. And I don't find that these really interfere with their ability to eat their meal a few hours later. So that's our first part of the picky eating solution, is to limit snacking, which is counterculture in our culture, but in many other cultures, like in the book French Kids Eat Everything, that's the book that I kind of got confirmation that there's entire cultures and countries that don't let their children snack and the kids are just fine, they grow just fine, and then they actually eat their meals really well. So there are entire cultures that don't snack, and their kids do just fine, even though in America it's kind of counterculture for a little bit, but kids adjust pretty quick. I think they adjust a lot faster than we do. So I'm just filling these about halfway, and then we'll fill it in with some liquid dairy kefir and tart cherry juice. And they're really pretty, and they look really pretty, especially with the white against them. And you could use almond milk, you can use really anything. You do want to watch when you're making popsicles is watch that you're not including too much sugar. So if you use I use grape juice concentrate in some of I've got the grape popsicle, I think I linked in the notes. If you use too much grape juice concentrate, it's too much sugar, and then they won't freeze enough that the sticks will stay in. So we need it to become really hard, and sugar isn't going to become that hard. the stick will just pull out when you try to do that. So you can see it's like a deceiving amount of fruit. We still have all of this left from what I put in. Just going to fill some of these up a little bit more. And they just look so pretty. The kids are excited, like they all have their favorite flavors. And you can do all different flavor combinations and see what your kids like the best. My kids really like the watermelon ones, but I don't have a watermelon to cut up right now. So we're just using these. Some more berries in. So anyways, after we've eliminated snacking, if your kids still aren't eating at meal times, it helps, or they're not eating what you want them to eat at mealtime, it helps to serve meals in courses. And what I mean by that is serve their least favorite thing first. So for my kids, I put usually protein and vegetables on their plate. And then when they are done with all their protein and vegetables, they can have a piece of fruit or carbs or starch or whatever we're having. Usually it's something carby is what they like the best. And so this can work kind of whatever your child's favorite food is and least favorite food is. If you want them to eat ferments and they're not, then they just need to take like a bite of sauerkraut, and then they can move on to the next part of the meal. So it's something that lots of people do anyway. Obviously restaurants serve their meals in courses, so it's not really anything abnormal. I don't feel like if you don't put a lot of emphasis on it and you don't make it into a punitive thing, it's just a matter of fact. It's like, yes, you can have strawberries after you eat your chicken and you eat your asparagus or whatever you're serving that night. And so it's just a matter of fact way that first you eat the stuff that's good for you and is going to be filling, and then you eat the stuff that isn't. Because some kids will eat a few bites of applesauce and it'll take the edge off their hunger, and then they'll try to hold out for more food. But if you get them when they're really hungry, and instead of letting them eat their fruit first, if they're not eating well and you don't feel like they're eating enough protein or fat and they're getting hungry between meals, then that can really help serving the meals in courses, so that they need to eat what's filling and what will hold them longer first, and then they can eat the good stuff. So that's the second part of our picky eating solution. If you're just joining, I have it linked there to a free webinar that explains this more in depth. So we have all these. I'm going to move these out of the way now so I can show you this other part. And the third part of the picky eating solution, and this one is more, it's harder, it's a lot more work for you. But the other two parts, you can just use whatever food you normally eat. But that's to remove the food that's feeding the sugar bugs. So our digestive system is full of bacteria, as you know. I'm just going to rinse my hands off real quick. And I'm going to show you our dairy kefir. So this is, I keep it in the fridge. You're not supposed to do that, but it has my kefir grains in it. And then it's just, I think I used raw milk for this one. We missed milk pickup yesterday because it was 4th of July. So this was, and then I culture it on the counter for 24 hours. Oops. Then I just drain it out like that. Our grains are in there. They're the solid lumps. They won't go through this. And you do this so that you can reuse them. And then there's our really probiotic rich, let me see if I can find one to show you. That's some milk. There's one. I'm going to rinse this off so I can show you. So that's the dairy kefir grain. And I have a tendency to only use dairy kefir in the summer, and I use it for smoothies and I use it for popsicles. And then I almost always kill my starter over the winter, and then I have to buy again. So I bought this as soon as the weather started warming up from Cultures for Health. And we just put our grains back in there. You don't need to rinse them off or anything. Just make sure you get them all. And some people say you're not supposed to use metal when you're culturing kombucha or kefir, and I always have, and it's always been fine. It cultures just fine. It smells really yeasty, and the milk doesn't go bad. So we have our kefir that we're going to use for our popsicles right here. And then this is just because I didn't get raw milk yesterday because of the holiday. This is half and half from Organic Valley, which is my favorite organic milk that you can buy at most grocery stores. Some of the organic milks, they put weird stuff in them. They taste like fish oil. So this tastes good. Half and half. If I'm going to culture this just with raw milk, I just use regular milk. But if I'm going to buy something from the store, the half and half, I feel like makes my grains reproduce better. So if I don't have raw milk, I'll use that. So we just screw a lid on it and then set this on the counter for 24 hours, and it'll be ready for smoothies in the morning. And this is what you have that's ready in the morning. If I'm not going to use it every 24 hours, after that 24 hours of culturing, I do put it in the fridge, which I think you're also not supposed to do, but I do anyway. So we're going to sweeten this a little bit. It is pretty tart. And when my kids were younger, before they kind of figured out that they like sweet things a lot better, I wouldn't sweeten it, and they thought it was great. Or I just use a little stevia. But I'm using maple syrup. I wanted to puree dates in it, and if you look on my website, there's a date paste recipe that's really good. And you can do that, and maple syrup is not legal on the GAPS diet, but it's what I have right now. And we are not on the GAPS diet. So then, because all of this is raw, it's just going in there, and they're going to eat it just like that. Just taste it. And if it tastes pretty sweet, then you're good to go. And it's easy. So I was telling a mom that the other day, just if you're not sure if it's the right recipe, just go ahead and taste it. And if it's not sweet enough, add more fruit or add more sweetener. And then we just pour it over the fruit like that. And I usually do like 3 or 4 of these, and then I snap the lids on. Just doing it assembly line style makes it faster, but I also don't want to knock them over. So I try to get the lids on before I accidentally knock any over. And I'll show you what I do for the tart cherry juice in a minute. And tart cherry so this has the probiotics, and it's the one that we don't want to give to our neighbors. It's too many probiotics, but if you're used to it, they're really beneficial. They'll help your immune system. My kids hardly ever get sick. We just snap the lids on. Oh, you can't see me doing that. Okay, I'll put them over there. The rocket ones are my favorites. The lids snap on really well. The star ones don't, but I just freeze them upright in the freezer and they're fine. And you still want to freeze them upright in the freezer so that it doesn't stick to the inside part. It just makes it easier to get them out. That's a rocket. Oops. A star. And then for the tart cherry, that one's fine to give the neighbor kids. And it helps sleep. There's been studies that tart cherry juice increases melatonin. I'm not sure if it's because it's dietary melatonin or it just like encourages the body to make more melatonin, but I find that no matter when my kids take tart cherry juice, if they're not sleeping well, it helps them sleep at night. So I kind of suspect it doesn't have to do with them having to take it right before they go to sleep, but it actually supports the body in making more. But I don't know. But there are studies showing that tart cherry juice is great for sleep. And we're here in Montana and it stays light. We had to wait until like 11 o'clock to do fireworks last night. It just stays light for a long time. So and it gets light super early. So any help I can get in getting my kids to go to sleep, stay asleep in the summer, I take. And tart cherry juice is part of that. So do 2 more. Oh, maybe another one after that. You can see this is really maple syrupy, so we won't use that. It won't freeze solid. It's too, like if you put maple syrup in the freezer, it's not going to freeze solid enough to make these formed popsicles. If you want to, you can use these, like the push-up molds, and they're silicone, think I have them linked in one of those notes that I put with the video. These, they don't have to freeze super solid. They can be kind of slushy and they're still good. So I'm gonna put that aside, snap these on, and then show you the tart cherry juice. And go back to talking about picky eating. So the third, and if you want all this picky eating stuff all in one place, I have that free picky eating webinar, and I did link to that. So you're welcome to sign up for that and get all of that together. So this tart cherry juice, I'm just going to put, it's pretty approximate, about half. And this also is concentrated, so it won't freeze well. I'm going to add a little bit of maple syrup to sweeten it up a little bit. And then fill this the rest of the way with water and stir that up. So there's that. This is easy, and these are, I know that the white ones have the kefir in them with the probiotics that I won't give out to people that aren't used to them, and I know that these don't have probiotics in them, just the different colors help me remember. So the third part of the picky eating solution is to eliminate the foods, at least for a little bit, so you can reestablish your gut flora with gut flora that craves healthy foods. So the bacteria in your gut do all sorts of things for you. They provide enzymes, they provide help with your digestion, they seal up leaky gut, they help you assimilate vitamins. They're awesome stuff, but if you get, and there's billions of them, if you get too many of them that are bad, they will send chemicals to your brain encouraging you to eat carb food, because that's what they live on. So, and this, like, once you think about it, it totally makes sense. If you starve, if you don't give them carbs, the ones that want carbs, especially sugars, will die off. And then, once they die off, they can't send those signals to your brain anymore through your bloodstream and through your digestive tract telling you to eat that junk food. So I encourage 3 to 5 days in the picky eating solution. And this is really only after you've kind of exhausted other options. A lot of kids will just respond well to having their meals served in courses and not snacking between meals, so they're actually hungry. But if they're not, then it's something bigger, and this is kind of what you suspect. It's not like a obedience issue. It's not a parenting issue. It's literally there's bugs in your kids' guts that are sending signals to their brains, and honestly, a lot of our generation, there's bugs in our guts sending signals to our brain to keep consuming food that is good for those bad bacteria, but not good for the good bacteria, and not good for our bodies. So it's not a parenting issue. It's not a control issue. It's literally there's chemical signals going and encouraging people, if their gut flora is populated with that pathogenic bacteria, it's encouraging them to eat junk food. So all we have to do is 3 to 5 days, and those guys will mostly die off. You can introduce probiotics. I don't usually recommend it a ton because it can be too much die-off of those bad things, like it can kill them off too fast. But sometimes instead of restricting that eating, you can do a probiotic instead, and that might help enough to get it rebalanced. But just getting rid of those sugar bugs by not feeding them can kind of make miraculous changes in what your kids will eat and yourself as well. We're almost done here. And one more. So then you can see how fast this is and how many we made, and they're healthy. We made 2 different kinds, and they are exactly what I love my kids to be eating. And I'm really glad you joined me here. I'm going to go put these in the freezer. I'm not going to take you out to my garage. So I just freeze them upright. And thanks for joining me. And we'll try and be back again next week.